Hi everyone, it's Nicole here today with an Essentials by Ellen Leading Ladies one layer trifold card. This is ultimate or extreme masking because everything on this card is one layer, which takes a little bit of planning in order to pull it off. I will tell you that my first lady, the cozy lady there on the very far left, gave me a little bit of trouble with the scarf and things, and I ended up having to stamp her, I believe, 4 times. So luckily, before I got all the way, all the images stamped, I just had a little bit of trouble getting started, but after that, everything went together fine, and I even used the scarf on another leading lady a little bit later, so it ended up working out okay. The way I create the base of my card is taking some Bristol Smooth cardstock and trimming it down to 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches by 12 inches. The paper is 9 by 12 in the pack, and I just take a craft ruler or a rotary cutter, I trim it down, and then I score it at 4 inches from each end. So it's going to be slightly more narrow than A2, but it's going to be as high as an A2 card. So each panel is 4 inches. I like to think of it that way, and then the height is 5.5 like normal. Now you can see I have laid out all of my images I want to use plus my greetings. We are using leading ladies from the Photo Lady, Crafty Lady, Bookworm Lady, Cozy Lady, Woodsy Lady, Dog Lady, Teacher Lady. Those are the leading lady sets I am using. I had this idea for quite a long time that a lot of the leading ladies are very, very similar in size and scale, which makes them very easy to work together. And so I took all of my leading lady sets and I kind of played around with all of them and settled on these. This is what worked together the best. But because of the size and scale of the leading ladies, it's often very difficult to use more than 1 or 2 for a standard size card. And I knew that I eventually wanted to try stamping a extended scene. And my favorite way to do this is doing masking, because then you don't have anything that might be bending on the score lines on your card. I think the best results happen when you're doing a one layer, at least for me they do. So what I'm going to do is use my Misty. This is going to help make everything line up a lot nicer. Stamp my images and then create masks for all of them. So you are going to have to do a little bit of fussy cutting with this technique, but it's so, so worth it. I am a huge fan of one layer cards. When you're sending them to someone special, or someone who definitely enjoys that kind of thing, it's worth the extra effort. These are some of my most detailed and favorite cards. I love scene cards anyway, and creating an extended long scene with multiple leading ladies, because they all are similar in size and scale, you can mix and match and use different accessories with them, and it's just so fun. One of my favorite things about this particular card is the difference in height, as far as most of the ladies are standing. I love that the new Bookworm lady, she's from one of the most recent releases, she's sitting, and I think that gives a really nice variation to the design. Another thing that was super important to me when creating this card was to implement accessories in a few places so that it adds interest and it's not just a bunch of ladies standing next to each other. I really wanted this card to convey a sense of a bunch of warm and fuzzy kind of feeling with their mugs of coffee or hot tea or hot cocoa, whatever you want it to be, scarves, just the stack of books, the little bag that the one lady's carrying that talks about being crafty, and then the dog. So I kind of just tried to pull in a few things that went together. I looked through my sets to see which ones had mugs or cups of coffee that they could be holding in their arms so that it appears that, you know, they are kind of that warm and fuzzy type feeling, I guess is what I was going for. So here are our first masks. And then we are going to add our lady. Now, the thing about her is I did mask off part of her arm then and add a mug. Probably the mug does not show up great in the finished card, but if I didn't point it out, it might not be that big of a deal. Another reason I lay out all the images prior to stamping is because it gives you an idea of what needs to be stamped first. I've also masked off part of this very awesome decorative mug, which is in the Bookworm Lady set as well. Probably most of my images today came from this. There's the lamp, the stack of books, a mug, and then the book and the Bookworm Lady. But one of the reasons that I partially stamped that is because I need it to appear to be held in her arms, but it takes a little bit more forethought, meaning I went ahead, stamped part of the mug. I remember we masked off part of it with some Post-it tape before we stamped it. Then I added just that little partial mask to the mug, stamped the lady over it, and then I've got a partial mask of her hand, and I'm going to line that mug back up and stamp it again so that it appears that she's holding it, and then we'll put the rest of the mask in place. It was a lot of masking, so definitely this is ultimate extreme masking, but worth it. I really am excited how this turned out. I tried to limit the amount of masking I had going on so that there isn't so many detailed ladies. So not everyone is holding something or has the extra scarf or anything like that. Some of them, it's just a straight up mask. Once I have the masks and all my stamping done, I'm going to add color to the background before we remove those. And I'm going kind of gently doing more of a pouncing motion and then kind of wiping away from the masks for the most part, because the masks will start to pull up in certain areas, especially if I held them or moved them around a lot, and a couple of them I did, and the oils from your fingers do tend to make them not want to stay put. So I'm adding a nice little layer of Mermaid Lagoon here, and I want to clean my work surface often so that the back of my card doesn't get ink on it. And then I use some Post-it tape to mask off the bottom of the card and add some Hickory Smoke Distress ink to that bottom portion. This is going to help ground it just a little bit. And then I'm going to go in with Chipped Sapphire to build up the intensity of my background just a little bit more. I'm a big fan of adding color in some way, whether it's straight up inking like I did here, or if you're going to use stencils for a cloud background, that's another favorite one that I have done in the past. Anything like that. Now, I find it easiest to use a pair of tweezers to pull off my masks because they can be a little bit tricky to grab a hold of, and I want to keep my fingers out of the ink of the background as much as possible. So I'm pulling these off and setting them to the side in case I need to use any more of them, which I do. The girl clear over on the right needs the rest of that coffee cup or stamped again. So I need to use her little arm to mask that off and then re-stamp that because I did that partial stamping for this coffee cup as well. And there is my card. In the past, when I have done these one layer cards, I have mentioned that this is something that I think, depending on the images and things you use, you can send the blank card to someone and let them color it. That's a fun idea too, almost like a coloring page. So the coloring can be up to the recipient. I think especially for little ones, that would be a really fun idea. When using Bristol Smooth cardstock, I like to use the Zig Clean Color Real Brush Markers. A couple of the main reasons are they are not going to bleed through the paper. These are water-based markers. They work fantastic with Bristol Smooth cardstock. and the back of your card's going to be nice and white still. So if you used Copics, you would either want to mount this on another piece of paper, which I don't want to do, or have to live with the fact that the markers bleed through the paper. And so one of my determining factors for one layer cards and why I do use zigs is because they don't go through. Another option, colored pencils. So if you are a colored pencil fan, use a cardstock that works well with colored pencils, and you could create a similar result. I like Prismacolors. I like polychromos for this. Works fantastic. I would just suggest making sure you have a long piece of paper to do this. Watercolor cardstock. Maybe you want a watercolor. That's not going to bleed through a watercolor cardstock. Just make sure you start with the right base of paper with the coloring medium you're going to use. I have listed the colors of Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers I'm using somewhere on the screen. I've tried to keep it so that they're not covering up where I'm actually coloring. Now, I did start to color this girl, and I remembered I had wanted to add a book in her arms. So you can see there's going to be a little red there. I'm going to go ahead and leave it. I'm just going to color the book a nice dark color that's going to cover that up. Have to be a little bit more intentional with my coloring in order to fix that mistake, but it's definitely possible. I started left to right, and that's to keep my hand out of the ink as much as possible. VersaFine ink is what I like to use with zigs. It does stay wet a little longer. You can hit it with a heat tool if you want to. I let my whole scene here sit and dry for a little bit. I kind of stamped it at one time and came back to it later and colored, but I tried to keep my hand off the paper. Just the way I write and color, I usually have my hand on the work surface instead of lifted up. It's just something I've always done, and it's kind of hard to work around. And I have smeared this kind of ink before. So if you do the same thing, my suggestions is to be just really careful when you're coloring. You do not want to smear it, or let it sit and dry for a little bit before you start coloring, or hit it with a heat tool. So I am imagining, I know I've colored the Bookworm lady before, and I imagined that she had little flats on or whatever, and then her feet. I just made these sock feet. Both of these girls clear over here on the left have sock feet. We're going to do bright, colorful stack of books, lots of different colors here. The lamp was green, the base will be a gray color. But they're starting to come to life. Very, very fun. And I'm just mixing and matching. I wanted a bright, colorful design. Lots of different colors everywhere. I did kind of go back to go-to colors in certain areas. So for denim, I'm using deep blue and haze blue. I use those on the Cozy Lady. I'm using them on the Photo Lady. I'm going to use them on other ladies throughout. I tried to mix and match skin tones, hair colors for a variety. It's funny enough, but brown and light brown are some of my favorites for red hair because they don't really look brown to me. Now, I did some freckles and they were a little too harsh, but what I like to do is go back with a very light skin color and blend out, and it's going to mute those freckles perfectly, and so she still has freckles. One of my favorite things to do with my zigs. I think it really is a fun effect. So we're going to start with some blue stripes on her top, and we'll go back in and add yellow next. And then for her sneakers, I kind of imagine them as Converse sneakers. And I decided to go with something out of the ordinary that doesn't really coordinate with her top or her pants, but I think it goes well enough. And that's to make them red and white. And we're going to even add yellow stripes on the top. So just really bright and colorful. That was kind of my go-to theme with this card, was bright and colorful. For the next lady's little cardigan, I am using blue and English lavender. It's a favorite color combination of mine. And then for the cuffs and hem of her jacket, we're just going to use English lavender to lighten those up just a little bit. And I'm going to come back to those. This is violet and light violet for her tee. So kind of all in the same color family. And then she's going to have denim pants as well with deep blue and haze blue. Grab some skin tone markers and add some color to this image. And then kind of a blonde color combination that I like is mustard and vanilla. I think that really makes a nice blonde color of hair. Maybe a little bit darker blonde. And I had a lot of markers out on my work surface, so I moved some of those out of the way. This is a kind of card, in fact, anytime I do one of these, it seems like I pull out a ton. Something I did that I've never done before on this card is create texture with my zigs. They're a little bit hard to use a white marker over the top to add detail, which is something I like to do a lot with Copics or with colored pencils. So I would go with my darkest color and I added back and forth stripes to this purple top that she's wearing for some texture. The pink scarf clear over on the Cozy Lady, I added stripes to that. Just adds a lot of interest to the design so that it's more fun to look at, I guess. Some browns for the little dog here, little red collar, and at the very end I add a little bit of yellow to his little tag on his collar. Gonna do some brown shorts. Funny enough, that is brown and light brown, which is what I used for the red hair. A green puffer vest with green and light green. This is the Woodsy Lady. I think her outfit's super cute. I think all their outfits are cute. I really just think I know I've mentioned it many, many times, but I love the Leading Ladies collection from Ellen Hudson. I think they're really fun. And they've got so many now that they're incredible to mix and match. Now, I thought I had a lot of neutral with her little kind of brown shorts and then the bright green vest, and I couldn't decide what color to do for her top, and I went with pink because I really like how the pink looks with the green. And so we're going to do a pink tee, the green vest, the brown shorts, and then some kind of neutral brown hiking boots, but I did her socks in rainbow. So they're going to have like pink and red and yellow, orange, green, blue. And I ended up, her socks are one of my favorite things on the card. I think that's kind of fun. So we're going to do that all the way down here on her little socks. And it adds just a really fun little rainbow touch to the card. Those hiking boots are really cute too. I love those. Only a couple more ladies left, and then we've got finishing details. Now this is the, I believe, Crafty Lady. It is. And I added the scarf from Cozy Lady for her. So very much like I did with the first one, added a little scarf there. Let's go ahead, and her pants are the light gray. I kind of had light gray denim and then the brown shorts. That was my bottoms color combinations. Forgot to do those shoes over here, so I just added some grays for those. She's going to have darker black hair. This is a natural gray and then a lighter gray color. Just kind of feathering that in and then going in with my lighter gray to blend out. And funny enough, her outfit ended up being one of my favorites on the card. We're going to do a red scarf, and then the rest of her outfit is fairly neutral. She's got the little gray pants on. We're going to do her jacket in the denim color. So where we've done denim on the bottom for a lot of these, I ended up doing it on the little jacket at the top. And then for her actual shirt, I wanted it to have a touch of color and not be total white, but not have a lot of color either. So haze blue is my light color I'm using to blend out for denim. I ended up using that haze blue on the top, and then I'm using the Zig blender marker to blend that color out so it's just a very, very light amount of color. Her shopping bag is blue and light blue. And I did customize the shopping bag with a fun little sentiment from the Crafty Lady stamp set. And let's get our last lady colored in. so we can finish this off. Denim on the bottom again. And then I did some bright colors because I kind of had a lot of neutrals and then not a lot of yellow. I haven't really seen yellow since there's a book and a mug and a yellow stripe on a tee. So I felt like I needed some yellow somewhere. So I did a little yellow sweater vest, and then underneath I'm going to do turquoise. None of the colors I already had out, or aqua, whatever you want to call it. None of the other colors I had out at the moment really just screamed that they were going to work well with this, and I really struggled before I started to color in her outfit what I wanted to do. And so I did yellow, and then I grabbed turquoise green and green shadow, which is my favorite go-to for kind of that fun aqua color. And I'm going to color that in, and that looks really cute. And then her coffee cup, I did a black lid, a red cup, and then just kind of like a little grayish white band around the center. I added eyelashes to the girls with a fine tip black marker. I went over all their eyes with a black glaze pen. And I see that I need to color a couple little things. She's got shoes. I just did some brown here. And then I've got sentiments. And the sentiments I'm using today are from the Totally Random Sayings. That's what You're the Best is from. And we're going to stamp that with Versamark ink and heat emboss with white embossing powder. Again, keeping everything in a single layer. And then the little phrase underneath it that says sending warm fuzzies, that is going to be stamped with the chipped sapphire ink that we used for the background. So a two-tone sentiment, one of my favorite things to do on a card. And finally, even though there's a lot going on, there's a lot of white space on this card. So I am stamping some little hearts from the Unicorns and Rainbows stamp set. I'm stamping them with Versamark, heat embossing with white embossing powder, and then filling in those hearts. You can see that they've got kind of a puffy red liquid in them. This is Nuvo Crystal Drops in Red Berry. And it's just going to fill in the little heart area. So it's still a single layer card, but this gives them a little bit of a glossy raised finish. It also fills in the space up above the leading ladies really nicely. It adds to the overall design and feel of the card and just finishes it off nicely. We're going to use Nuvo Crystal Drops in White Blizzard, which is the sparkly for the top of the lamp, and also for the red coffee cup that the girl on the right is holding. This is the Red Berry Nuvo Crystal Drops, and I'm just going to very, very carefully apply that to my hearts, fill in those little kind of non-perfect hearts. These are really whimsical, very, very cute. And then we're going to let this sit and dry completely. I would suggest it'll be dry in a couple hours, I mean, to the touch and everything, but I would let this sit for a good 24 hours before trying to mail it so that you make sure that the product has hardened all the way. So here is a look at the finished card. I am going to take a bone folder, score this so that you can see exactly what it'll look like when the recipient takes it out of the envelope. I always like to use a score pal to fold it, or to create the score lines. And then I'm using my bone folder just really gently along those to make sure that it is nice and scored. And when the recipient takes it out of the envelope, they're just going to pull it open and it's going to show this amazing extended scene with all of these adorable leading ladies. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this tri-fold one-layer card featuring the Essentials by Ellen Leading Ladies stamps. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring the Essentials by Ellen Leading Ladies dies that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.